Okay. Good morning, all, and welcome. Now, what am I doing this morning? So, I am going to be taking you through our business operating system. And what that means is it's a toolkit, it's a vast and extensive set of strategies and tools to help each one of you do two things with your business: consistently grow your business and grow your profits. And secondly, to help you do that in a more efficient way, in a way that's not going to be entirely reliant on yourselves. So that's our goal with this system. And this is the system that we use for every single business that we coach. This is the system I've used in my own practice for the last nearly 18 years now. And obviously we've only got an hour today, so I'm going to give you an overview of some of the key strategies here that I want you all to be using. Now, so I'm coming at this from a very practical perspective, guys. This is not theories. This is real, tangible, practical things that I would want all of you to be using. My team and I use this all the time with the people we're coaching. So the goal is to think of it a bit like an audit. Some of this stuff you're going to be doing, you know about, you're doing it, fantastic. Some of this stuff you know about, but maybe you're not doing it or you're not doing it consistently. And some of this stuff you're going to be like, hadn't even thought of that. So my goal today is you decide where you're looking, which areas of this system you're looking strong, which area of this systems you need to sharpen up, and then you decide what you take away and do with this. And I would certainly advocate that you all take notes, and at the end of this hour, you decide which strategies, which part of this toolkit you take away and use in your business. That's the point of this. It's great that you're here. It's great that you're listening, and but you're going to take notes. That's great. But if you don't do something with this, you're not really going to make much change from what we're talking about this morning. So that's my goal today, it's not for you to sit there and go, I know this. It's for you to sit there and go, okay, maybe I know about this. Am I using it? Is it actually working? Is it getting results? And is it something I choose to do better in my business? That's your decision at the end of this hour. But I just want to underline that point. So I noticed yesterday that actually one of the people who's registered for this event, Namita, she's actually done several years of coaching with us. So I just wanted Namita to just jump on. Thank you, Namita, and just say a few words about what you think about this system. Does it work? I'm sitting here saying it works. It's going to help you all. Namita, how would you articulate that?
Well, I've been coaching since I think it was October-ish, September, October 2021, so quite a number of years. And in some respects, why am I here at a reset session when I've had such good results? I have had good results, but any opportunity for me to come back and uh, gain some more wisdom from Parag's experience, remind myself of the mastery that you're about to hear about, I'll grab with every opportunity. So it's only an hour of my day. So I thought it was a brilliant opportunity for me to come back. But essentially, in the last few years of coaching, um, I'm not quite sure my business would be standing, but for my attendance at these coaching sessions. The first year for me was absolutely crucial because they have a very sensible program. It's really organized. It's really clear. It gave me real focus. So the reality was I learned a lot about various aspects of running a business that had never even occurred to me. So I have a criminal defense practice. I took over my firm when my partner retired and had to figure out not just, being a lawyer is my job, but I all of a sudden had to become a business owner. And so through the system that they have set up, it gave me tools and structure to sort out my time management, which is still an ongoing issue. I think it never will be perfected, but at least I've got the tools in my toolkit to remind myself of what I should be doing. And you've got accountability club that comes along with all of this, and that is absolutely crucial to success. But my time sorting out my recruitment processes, I mean, I didn't have a recruitment process, so it gave me the structure of what I should be doing, and from that, not all quite applied to me. So I was able to take what worked for me, and Parag, I'm sure, has seen on LinkedIn the various additions to my team over the last few
Mm,
years.
mm.
The systems, we've now got how-to guides, how to be a paralegal. We've got a firm-wide process document. There is a documented system written for literally how to do everything in the business. We've got marketing plans, we've got social media strategy,
Mm.
checklists, finance, cash flow forecast. I mean, I would never have known, frankly, how to set up a cash flow forecast, let alone understand it, read it. We track all of the leads that come in. We work out
Wow.
how many of those leads convert. We work out where those leads come from. And I mean, this is just an absolute snapshot, but the reality is, without the coaching, I'm not being paid, by the way, to say any of this. I'm saying it all because it's completely true. But without the coaching, none of those things would be in place. And so I'm now just over 3 years running the business myself on my own. And the coaching has been the frankly the reason that I'm still going. And as I say, any opportunity to come back and have a little reset and reminder session is an opportunity I'll grab. And aside from all of that, the coaches are great, of course, but the biggest benefit you'll get from quarterly planning and accountability sessions and sessions with your fellow coachees are the support that you get. I've actually made some fantastic friends, and so I saw them at BizX at the beginning of April, and it was brilliant to see everyone. You get together with business owners in the same room, and you realize that it's not just you going through whatever it might be at that particular time. For me, it's often recruitment, staff, or team, or whatever it is, cash flow. Everyone's also going through it, and it's a great ability to um, share with people that are also going through what you are because it can be quite lonely. Even if you've got a business partner, obviously that would be ideal. But if you don't, as I don't, it's just me on my own. It can be quite a lonely place. So the sort of emotional support, I used to call it business therapy, because you'd be able to share with how you're feeling about your business at the same time, and get some brilliant ideas. So yeah, very quick snapshot for me, but it's
Well,
been
thank you,
invaluable.
Namita, and I thank you so much for saying all that. I just thank you because my point was here that guys, this yeah, I want you to understand this stuff is going to help you. That's my goal today. I just want to help you. So I really appreciate that, Namita, and I'm going to get straight into. I know everyone's now joined, so I'm going to get straight into some information for you all. So I'm going to start here at the bottom left. This is our operating system, as I said at the start, and we start with these tools in what we call the mastery section. And this is all about building the solid foundations for your business. Do you have a business that's solid, or is it built on quicksand? And so this first step is called destination mastery here on the left. And the D stands for the dream, first of all. What's the dream for your business? And another way of saying that is what's the vision? So do you have a vision statement for your business? And if I was to go into your business, if I was to ask if your teams, if you got most of you got teams, do they know what your vision is? Do they understand it? Is it written down anywhere? Does it mean anything to anyone? So that's the first step, the business vision. How clear is that? Secondly, I'd also say, what's your personal vision? Like, what do you personally want from your business? And that's going to be different for everyone. But have you started with an end in mind? Do you know? And so if you don't, that certainly could be something to work on. It could be and I'll talk about some financial outcomes a bit towards the end of this hour. But is it a financial outcome you want? If there's something else that you personally want from your business, because you are the owner after all, there should be a return on that time and that money for your business. So what's the dream? Then we need goals, of course. That's what the G stands for here in this mastery box. Now, I always ask this, how many of you as business owners are working to a set of written goals in your business? Do you actually have those written down? Goals in the head, not enough. They need to be written down. You can't track something that's in your head. There's too much else going on in your heads. So you need written goals, short, long, medium, short term, 5 or 3 years, certainly 1 year goals and 90-day blocks. So first thing we do with anyone we coach, we get their goals written down so they know what they're trying to achieve and it can be tracked. I'm hoping most of you got something written down, but I'm hoping, especially if some of you know us already. The P here stands for plan. You have I'm in London, the London Marathon on Sunday. Can you imagine someone setting out for the marathon without a training plan of how are they going to achieve their goal for running the marathon? It's not possible without a plan. Same here. So I'm going to talk about a few plans, but it starts with everyone we coach works to an OKR system. That's the system that was started by Microsoft years and years and years ago, and really we call it the 90-day plan. In fact, I've got one here. 90-day plan. 90-day plan, which is you take your goals, you say, what are your top 3 business goals? What's your top 1 personal goal? We timeline it across 13 weeks. That's it every quarter. We've got the actions to achieve those goals. We've got the owners for each goal. There is absolute clarity on how your business is going to achieve its goals every 90 days. We cannot go into running our businesses and hoping for a different result if we haven't got this level of clarity. So we make sure everyone has this level of clarity. Goals, priority goals, actions, timeframes, owners, every 90 days. And then the fourth part of mastery here is actions. Are you actually, you and your teams, executing the actions that you need to be executing against those goals, against those OKRs? Is the activity actually happening? And we'll come on to some reasons why it isn't right now, because the second box is the time mastery box. As Namita mentioned, time mastery is a challenge for her. It's a challenge for most of you. So we need some tools to help us overcome that and move out of the chaos. I know for most of the people we speak to, they've got big goals. They've got big aspirations for their business and for their life. But you can't do that if you're in a constant state of reactivity and chaos. That is not a recipe for achieving your long-term goals for you. So, first of all, are you doing business owner work? Are you working on your business, i.e. the stuff that really only you or a business partner can do, not your employees? What percentage of your time is going on business owner work? Our first goal with anyone is to get you to at least 20%, a day a week on your business, on the stuff that I'm showing you today, basically, systems, strategies, growth, at least a day a week. And if most of your time is spent reactive in the business, doing emails, clients, customers, I call that the hamster wheelers, the busy fools, because you're running and it feels like you're doing a lot, but you're not actually doing enough of the things that are going to get you to where you want to go, which is, of course, defined in your goals. This is why we get everyone to write them down, because then it gives you an intention, a focus. Right, here's what I want to go this quarter. Right, let's make sure our time reflects, at least some of our time reflects the stuff I need to do to help me achieve my goals. So it's goal focused. Time becomes goal focused, not just reactive. Now, the DD, the default diary. In order to know what you should be doing every day, we need a default diary, which is a time blocking system. You decide what you're doing at Monday 9 o'clock, Monday 10 o'clock, Monday 11 o'clock. It's blocked in your diary and it's driven by what's in your goals. Of course, there'll be time, of course, in there for your execution of work, project work, client work, whatever you're choosing to do as well. But the working on the business stuff needs to be proactively planned in there. Now, to work more on your business and to work more on these strategies, you need to delegate. You need to get some stuff off your plate because most owners are juggling too many balls. So some stuff has to come off your plate. One of the most common issues we see is that people don't like delegating because they're worried about the risks. Of course, there are risks. Of course, there are. And for every risk, there is a strategy to manage that risk. I'll talk about some of them today in terms of how you recruit, the systems you have. There are strategies to manage that. That's how we got people to step back or step out of their businesses, because they build the infrastructure so that those delegation risks are managed. Same in my business. We're 10 people. I can't do everything. There's stuff in my business I have no idea about, to be honest, because I've delegated it. And as long as we've got the systems there, those risks are managed. So yes, there is a risk from doing that. The question you should be asking yourself is, what are you doing to manage those risks? And that's some of the stuff we're going to cover today. But you need a default diary as well that's focused on what you should be doing, not just what happens to come up in your inbox. Now, the fourth box there then is the habits. And the biggest challenge with time mastery is, even if you've got your goals, which most people don't, even if you've got a time blocking system, which most people don't, even if you do that and you set all that up, most people stray from the path. They set their intention of what they should be doing, and then they get, oh, this happened and that happened. And the fact is, we all have the same amount of hours in the day. It's how we choose to use them. It's how we choose to react to the situations that come up. And that is a function of our habits. Our habits will determine the output we get from our days. So consciously working on our habits is critical if you want to get a greater output, meaningful output from your day, rather than just being a hamster wheeler. So I've mentioned some habits. Superhero syndrome, the person that constantly jumps in whenever there's a problem in execution with customers. You're the superhero that fixes it. You end up doing your team's jobs. Not a great habit. Parkinson's law, you work to fill the available time because you haven't built a time blocking system. So you end up spending 3 hours a task instead of 30 minutes because you never set a time frame for it. Habits around distractions. Of course, the classic distractions, emails, phones, social media, all of those habits can be challenged and rebuilt. But it's a case of understanding what are the habits that are sabotaging your time. Assuming you've set your goals and you've set your weekly diaries, then once you've done that, we start looking at the habits that are throwing you off course. The issue is not time. The issue is never time. We all have the same amount of time. The issue is the decisions you're making on where you choose to spend your time. Because ultimately, it comes back to the hours, days, and weeks that you choose to work. And you have a choice. And those of you that, I know a lot of you follow me on LinkedIn, and I talk about this a lot, that it doesn't have to be a constant daily grind. That is not a recipe for high productivity. In fact, for me personally, I'm not going to talk about myself today. Most of you know me, but for me personally, I used to work that way, the 60 plus hours a week 10 years ago. That was a recipe for bad health. And that's exactly what happened to me. And now I don't do that anymore. I work 35 hours a week. My business is 3 times the size, and I've got more than one business. So my hours have almost halved. Output results have increased significantly. You have a choice. You can choose how you choose to structure your days, weeks, months. You choose how much to work, how much time off to have. It's a choice. But then we need to look at the strategies I've mentioned so that you can delegate more effectively. You can structure your time more effectively. And you can start to work on the habits that are sabotaging your time. Now, the third block of mastery, delivery mastery. In other words, how good is the quality of your service? How good is the customer, the client experience? Most people say, that's good, Parag. Let's talk about the leaks. There may be some areas I call the leaks, some weaknesses, some pinch points in the customer experience. Of course, you need good systems, clear processes for how the job is done. If there's a weakness in a part of your execution, go back to the system that outlines how to do that. That's the leak that needs to be fixed first. Once you start fixing there's always leaks. I love doing this with restaurants. Whenever I go into a restaurant, I always look at how I'm greeted. And I know from that first experience whether they've got a system for that or not. I always look at that one. Now, once you start fixing the leaks in your execution, your operational systems, then you can start building the ultimate customer, what we call the raving fan. The raving fan customer, i.e. somebody who loves what you do. They know you're credible. They know you're high quality. That person will always buy from you and they will always refer you. Now, how do you build the ultimate customer? Yes, you need great systems. But ultimately, the customer experience is also driven by how they feel about you. Why? Because we're emotional. We're driven by emotional reactions first in our brains. So we call it the emotional bank account, the EBA, the emotional bank account. Every interaction they have with you is either a positive one that's a deposit in that bank account or a withdrawal. So how do you know how your clients feel about the experience with you? Well, you should have some form of measurement system. Whether that's NPS, Net Promoter Scores, reviews. I'm a huge fan of Google reviews or whichever platform may be appropriate for your industry, whether it's Trustpilot or Checkatrade or whatever it is. Do you have your first 100 reviews? The more, the better, of course. Obviously, it's great for marketing, and it's also great for you understanding whether your clients are really happy or not. How do they actually feel about you? Now, the other thing I'd say about delivery and execution is the ABCD clients. We get people to grade their clients. A is the ideal client. What are the characteristics of an A grade client versus what are the characteristics of a D grade client? A bad client, your nightmare client. What's the difference? And we get you to write that down. And very often with a D, for example, so many service businesses, especially we coach, and the D grade clients actually lose the money. They actually lose money on bad clients. And then I say, well, why do you end up working with bad clients? The C's and the D's. Why? And the most common answer we get is, well, we had to work with them because we didn't have any other options. That we needed the work. And that's a real weakness in a business. Because if you have to work with bad quality clients because you need the work, then which department is failing in your business? Which department is absolutely failing? Marketing. And until we fix that marketing issue, you will end up working with C and D clients who will cost you money and cost you your sanity. See that one all the time. It's a marketing issue. So we need to work with the ideal clients, not the duds. That's how you fix that problem. Fourth pillar here of mastery, financial mastery. In other words, do you understand what's going on financially in your business? Do you really have a clear handle on that? So I use a sporting analogy here. Do you have a scoreboard? Do you know the score in your business? Not just your P&Ls. That's not enough. Do you have business data? Do you have data, metrics on performance? For example, do you know your net profits are given. Do you know your net profit? Do you actually know what that is for the X number of months you've had of your financial years? Do you even know what your net profit is? Do you know, for those of you in service businesses, your engineers, your architects, your construction firms, do you know your contract margins? Not just forecasted actuals. Do you know your contract margins and whether you're ahead or behind what they should be? Do you have a cash flow? Namita mentioned cash flow forecasts earlier. Do you have a cash flow forecast for your business looking at least 6 months? Ideally longer. Do you know how your cash is forecasted to look over that time period? And some of you may know, those of you got debtors, and especially those of you got issues with debtors, do you have a system to manage debtors and collection of payments? Do you have that system documented? Does someone own that system and manages that system and is held accountable to making that system work? I know that won't be applicable to every business here, but there's lots of businesses who have got debtors and who've got issues with debtors. And there's always problems. Of course there is. That's why you need a system and a process for it. Okay, so that's our mastery. I've got to go quickly today, guys. We've only got an hour. That's mastery. I want to talk about the second step here, growth. How are you going to grow your business? Well, first of all, we need to get the mastery right. But we need to look at marketing and sales. And before we look at that, we also need to look at your USP, unique selling point. Now, I don't talk about it. Seth Godin, in his book, Purple Cow, talks about the fact you need to look different. You need to differentiate your business from the competition. This is a huge issue. Almost everyone on this call, including us, are in competitive industries. How are we differentiating ourselves? What's your USP, unique selling point, or what I prefer to call value proposition, unique value proposition? Why should they go to you and not a cheaper competitor? I'll say that again. Why should they go to you and not a cheaper competitor? Of course, there's going to be cheaper competitors. So why should they go to you? If you cannot articulate that, you are into a price war. And that is a fast, or even slow way to erode your margins and to kill your business. Because no one can survive that. If you're constantly competing on price, it's going down. It's just a case of how quickly you are going down. Happens every day. It's a statistical certainty. If you keep doing that, you are on your way out. So we have to look different. We have to educate on value. That's why you do marketing. Marketing is not just talking about who you are and what you do. It's about educating your target audience on why you. Guarantees might help. That might be relevant to some of you. But really, for me, it comes down to the mindset. It comes down to the mindset towards marketing. Marketing is not an afterthought. It is for many businesses. It has to be front of mind and a priority. I coached a business called Propercorn years and years ago, the popcorn makers. They were only about 1 million at the time. They got up to 12 million within 3 years. And then I stepped out. They got a board of high-profile, fancy investors. They had a marketing mindset. They were extremely aggressive and proactive with their marketing. Why? Because they knew it was the fuel for growth. Most owners look at it as a cost and therefore extremely tentative around their marketing. So how do we manage those risks? Well, you need a marketing plan. And I believe you need a marketing plan that's at least driven to some extent by content. Why? Because most marketing is consumed digitally these days. That's why you need content in some way, shape, or form. Yes, of course, there's the face-to-face stuff as well. but consumer buying behaviors have changed, especially since COVID. More and more people are doing their due diligence online now, which is why you need content, which is why you need those reviews, which is why you need that expertise, which is why you need to be talking about your value proposition needs to be out there, which is why you need a plan. And at the center of that is a minimum 3 to 5 strategies a month, consistently, minimum. If you're less than 3, you are taking a colossal risk with your business. It's not enough. It's just not enough, because if 2 of those aren't working that month, and that will happen, they'll have varying levels of success. 2 of them aren't that working that month, you're really hanging by a shoestring about where, in terms of where your leads are coming from. So minimum 3 to 5, ideally more. And then you test and measure. You measure the results. You can see what's working. You can see what's not working. You can choose to move upwards in terms of execution, or switch something off and try something else. At least you've got the data and the results to make those decisions. But one of the biggest mistakes I see is just a lack of volume and consistency. I'll give you an example. I mean, in terms of online, for me and my business, for me personally, LinkedIn is the only channel I use. My team do our marketing, but I do all my LinkedIn. And I know from research that most people, if they want results from LinkedIn, they've got to be doing at least a post a day, 5 a week. And we've surveyed our clients on this. None of them are doing a post a day. Maybe 1. And we coach 110 businesses a month. 1. There just isn't the volume and consistency. That's a major challenge. It's the difference between, as I said, a marketing mindset and someone who thinks that marketing is an afterthought. And referrals, I'll throw referrals. Yes, I know you're going to say, but we get referrals, Parag. But my challenge with referrals is they're out of your control. You can't control when you get referrals. It's great you get them. You can't control how many. You can't control when. So just relying on referrals to me is incredibly risky, incredibly risky. Yes, it should be one of your strategies, and you should have a strategy there to get more referrals, but you can't rely on referrals. Now, once you've got your leads, we need to convert leads. The number one factor for conversion, know, like, and trust. Do they know, like, and trust you and your business? Do they understand? That's why I think the marketing plan, the content, and the volume and consistency is so important, because it builds know, like, and trust. It's an easier conversion. That's why referrals convert so much better, because people know, like, and trust you, because your referrer has done some work for you. And 7-Eleven there, 7-Elevening, I remember meeting Dan Priestley a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the importance of 7-Elevening, i.e. the average decision needs, let me get this right, 7 hours of interaction, of content, 11 interactions to build that know, like, and trust. And this is based on research by Google. Most businesses do not have that level of engagement with a lead before they're asking them to make a decision, which is why you may not be getting enough yes decisions. Of course, you need a sales process, a documented series of steps that you take every new lead, every new inquiry through, which should include some form of scripting. How do you conduct that first call or that first meeting with a lead? Like what's being said, what's being asked, should be question-based. How do you deal with objections? That should be written down. Maybe you need some website analytics as well that shows where you're maybe losing leads on your website. You should certainly have some sort of follow-up systems in place. What happens when you send out a quote, a proposal? How do you follow up on that? How do you follow up on people earlier on in the process? That's why you need a process, so that you and your teams know what happens at every step. And I think the most important factor with sales is how much knowledge do you actually have? You and whoever else is involved in sales. Sales is a learned skill. It's a skill. I used to be an accountant. When I started my business 18 years ago, I had not the foggiest idea how to sell anything because I'd never had to. But within my first year, I devoured numerous sales books. We didn't even have podcasts and things in those days. There's more sales education that you will ever be able to consume in a lifetime. How much of it are you consuming? So much you can learn about how to improve sales. So there's some big points here I want to re-emphasize here around marketing, lead gen, and conversion. And as I said at the start, I really want you to think about what you can sharpen up on here, what you can do differently. Now, I'm going to jump to, I'm not going to talk much about average spend and number of transactions because the time I've got, I do want to talk about margins. I do want to talk about margins because, again, especially in the service sectors, wage inflation. Yeah, I was talking to one of our engineering clients the other day. Wage and material costs up 40% since COVID. So you got those costs going up, and you've also got, for many of you, price pressures. So costs up, fees possibly going down. That's a massive squeeze and pressure on your margins. Huge. How are you going to manage that? First of all, do you know what those margins are? Going back to the scoreboard, you should know, you should have a very close eye on whether those margins are moving the right way or not. You should know what they are, first of all. Secondly, the biggest source of waste we see when it comes to profit is the biggest cost in your business, your people. Your people. Are your people busy or are they productive? Now, what will they tell you? What will they tell you? Of course, we're busy. Oh, God, it's busy at the moment. Everyone's busy. But are they productive? Are you measuring productivity and output in any way? Because they ain't productive. Once you start measuring it, you will start to see. When we get people to measure this, it's like, oh, blimey, they're working these hours, but where's the productivity? Where's the output? Why are we behind on so many things? Huge difference. Now, the other thing we're seeing a lot of is whether you are falling into the trap of becoming a commodity. You've got these price pressures, these fee pressures. You're not talking about value proposition. You're not educating them on value or on your differentiator, like I said. You're not doing any of that. So the danger is you're becoming commoditized. So think about whether you are genuinely educating them, your audience, on the value, on the differentiator, or whether, I mean, let's talk accountants. I'll pick on accountants. I don't know if we got any accountants today. I don't think we do. Accountants, I used to be an accountant. Accountants are becoming more and more commoditized. The service is becoming more and more commoditized. In fact. So they've got to differentiate, they've got to prove their value, or they've got to niche. Niching means becoming much more specialized. Most small businesses are marketing to too broad an audience, far too broad. And yet your marketing is like this, and your audience is like that. It's too broad. Niching is a thing we've done with a lot of clients, helping get more specialized, more focused. Means your marketing can communicate far more effectively to a more niched audience. That may be an option, but also consider what I've just said as well about why you're feeling that fee pressure and becoming more commoditized. Is it something else that you're not doing with your marketing? But that could be an option to defend against fee pressure and wage inflation. Okay. Now, I want to talk about systems. Gosh, time is flying. A few things I'm going to say about systems. Of course, you need systems on how people do their jobs in your business. And there's loads of options, of course. Your manuals, you've got automation options as well, which is wonderful. I am still a big fan of checklists. Checklists run the world. I'm a huge fan of checklists. They're simple to create and simple to follow. And they're beautiful. Checklists run the NHS. Checklists run the airline industry, and beautifully so. And yes, we've got AI and tech. Don't neglect checklists. The other issue I see with systems, this point here, monitoring and accountability for usage. We hear this so often, that the business has actually invested time and effort building some basic systems. Fantastic. Nobody's following them. And you're banging your head against the wall going, why are my people not following the systems? Who's responsible for that? I'm looking at them because there's no accountability system for that. And I'll talk about a few options in a minute, but no one's accountable. See, in the airline industry, if a pilot decides to start taxiing the plane and hasn't been through the checklist and the safety checklist, what happens? What happens? That pilot's out. No more pilot. There's a clear accountability that they understand, so they don't dodge it, and you're pretty glad they don't dodge that. So this accountability box here, this may help. Does your team have clear job descriptions and contracts for their roles? You'd think that's obvious, but it's not always the case. Do they have key performance indicators for their role? Do they know how their performance is going to be measured? Oh, Prague, they don't use our systems. Set it as a KPI. Prague, they're not filling in their timesheets. Set it as a KPI. Or whatever's important to you. Are you having weekly one-to-ones or weekly team meetings? If you've got a bigger team, then maybe you can't have a one-to-one with everyone, but you can certainly have a weekly team meeting. Do you have have you got that weekly discipline in your business? It doesn't matter how busy you are. You can't be an effective leader and manager if you haven't got that weekly discipline. Have you got an appraisal systems where people are regularly monitored against this stuff? These are just some of the accountability systems to help ensure the systems and whatever you need them to be doing are actually being done. The people and education box, two things I want to highlight here. Training. I'll make this point over and over again. We need to grow our people. We can't expect people to be great without that training, that support. Training is not a one-off activity. It should be ongoing. It should be ongoing. The other thing I'd say is the future org chart. Have you mapped out what your business looks like? I know you'll all have your goals. I talked about goals earlier, how much you want to grow. Let's say you want to double in the next 5 years. That's just as an example. What does that business therefore look like in terms of stuff like management, marketing team, other people, admin support? Have you done a future org chart that shows what a business of that size needs to look like? Because then that becomes a framework for hiring. And you then understand who you need to hire and when. And so if I go up to recruitment system here, if you want your team to be better, and I didn't want my team to be better, I wanted my team to be superb and world-class. And that's what I got. Took me years to build that, but that was my intention. Well, it started with great recruitment. If I was to pick one thing that's done worst in a business, it's recruitment. How many of you have ever made a hiring mistake? I haven't yet to meet a business owner that hasn't. We've all been there. And we've got to look at recruitment first. Recruitment is not chuck a job ad out when you're desperate and hope that you find a great person in 3 weeks. That is what a crappy business does. that is not going to find you great people. I prefer to call it an attraction process. You are marketing your business to potential recruits. This is what great businesses do, but this is what corporates do. This is how they became corporates. They're brilliant at attracting talent, not just chucking a job ad out. They're always recruiting. ABR, always be recruiting. That's their mindset. You're always recruiting. You're always on the lookout for talent, not just when you need it. When you need it, it's too late because you don't have a pool of talent. You have a pool of whoever's desperate for a job at the time, and you get what you deserve. When we're recruiting, we need to deprioritize CVs. CV should not be your screen for whether someone's ready for the job or not. It should be based on attitude. We screen for attitude. And in this process, we're screening for attitude. We're testing for skills, yes, but we're screening for attitude. We're also ensuring cultural alignment. Absolutely critical. Do they align in terms of their culture? Do they align with the kind of person you want? This is where group interviews are great. We use group interviews so you can actually explain what you mean by your culture is not 5 values written down on your website and you expect people to align with that. You've got to explain what that culture is. What does that mean? You get your teams involved. They can explain what it's like to work there and what the culture is like. But ultimately, there's no perfect recruitment process. You guys know that. But we can stack the odds in our favor. We hire slow. Most businesses hire fast. We hire much slower. Some of my team took a year to recruit. I've had people hire senior managers in their team that took them a year to 2 years because they need to find the right people, not any people. That's why we need to be recruiting much earlier. But then we need to hold them to account when they join your business. We need KPIs for their probation period as well. And the biggest mistake, another big mistake, is you need to enforce probation. In other words, are you monitoring their performance in probation? Do they know whether they're passing probation or not? Do they know how their performance is? Because you're doing weekly reviews with them. Do they know whether their performance is good enough to keep their jobs or not? Oh, but Parag, there's not enough good people out there. You know, Brexit screwed it up and all this stuff. We need a better recruitment process then. Of course, there's not a lot of great people out there. I'm afraid that's a fact of life. That's why recruitment needs to be better. That's why it needs to be attraction. You need to work harder on recruitment. It's a longer process. That's why your marketing's so important. These great people are checking you out online all the time. They don't want to work for the crappy businesses. They're checking you out. So you track them. But yeah, once they're in, you do need to monitor them and force probation. If they just think they can do what they want and the jobs are given, what performance standards are you setting? What expectation are you setting? If probation wasn't enforced, if probation wasn't monitored. Okay, right, 10 minutes. Culture. I talked about cultural alignment. That assumes you know what your company culture is. It's not 5 values written down on a page. That's the start. But the culture is a definition of the behaviors that you would like to see in your business. What behaviors do you want in your people? One of those, we call it above and below the line. Do you want people who, whenever they're faced with a problem or something goes wrong, you get blame, excuses, and denial? Or do you want people who are self-responsible and say, right, I'll fix it. I'm responsible. I'll take ownership for this. That's what I mean by attitude screening. I think that should be part of it. Everyone we coach understands this concept. I also think, as I said, you want people who you can grow. Do you have a culture of growth in your business? Do you have a culture of learning? That assumes you have a culture of learning. Like, do you understand that none of us are the finished article? So you've got this culture where you're encouraging people to constantly improve and grow. Does that exist? If training's a one-off thing once a year, that's not a culture of learning. Yeah, I'm in a coaching business. So how often do I learn? Every single day, consciously, deliberately, even after 18 years. And the other thing about getting the environment and the culture right is obviously you're trying to screen for the right people to get on your bus. The right people, not just any people. You also need to get the wrong people off. The wrong people can be, even if they're okay. I'm not talking about toxic people. I mean, they should be off anyway. But even okay, as you're going through the journey, at some point, people are going to need to get off the bus as you keep growing. And as a leader, you need to know when that's the right time for you and for them, and act on that. But it starts by getting clear on the culture. The other massive value of getting clear on your culture and defining it and aligning people with it is people will care. If you want your people to care, you need to talk about your vision, which I talked about at the start. What does your business stand for? Why are you in business? And you need to talk about your culture. When you get those two things right, people might actually care. If you don't get those two things right, why are they coming to work for you? Why are they coming to work for you? There's only one reason: the paycheck. So we need culture, we need vision if you want to engage people. Okay, leadership. Just want to put one or two things on leadership. Your business needs a strong leader. That's you, by the way. And my definition of a strong leader, my definition is great leaders build more leaders in their business. They build more leaders. And ultimately, if this, I know this isn't the goal for everyone, if you want your business to work a little bit more without you, you need to build a second in command. You need to build at least one more leader in your business who can take over a lot more responsibility, whatever job title they have. They're a second in command, but you've grown them, you've built them, you've nurtured them, everyone, because you've got that culture of learning. Underpinning that, career plans are really important. Your team should have career plans, especially people you actually want to keep. And having a culture of recognition as well. People in the workplace, people need recognition. They need to feel valued. They need to feel appreciated. It's criminally underrated in most companies. People do not feel valued. We need recognition. ROTG, we need rules of the game as well. We need rules of what's okay, what's not okay. Yes, that stuff should be defined when you onboard them and induct them in your business. We need some basic rules there as well. But ultimately, we need to be building our people. That needs to be a conscious part of your job description. Right. I'll finish up quickly, but I've got a few other key points. Ultimately, for most people we come across, they want their business to work a little bit more out without you. And that might look like you spending at least 50% of your time working on your business. Some of our guys are at 50%, some are 100%. They're not involved in the day-to-day at all because the business works. It's a well-oiled machine. The systems and people work. Then you've got choices as to what to do. You can scale at that point. When it's not so reliant on you, you can scale. That's when you can add more services, more products, more sites, more offices. Or that's when you can realistically start to look at succession or stepping back. You we're helping clients with EOTs at the moment, employee ownership trusts. You might be creating second in command or future general manager even, or building a senior management team. People who can effectively take over more of the running of your business. May or may not be a goal for you, but for those of you who it is, we need to get these first 4 stages of our business operating system in place. That's going to take some time, 3 to 7 years on average. Okay, this is not a 3-month job. 3 to 7 years, realistically 10. for many, which is better than never. Most businesses never achieve this level, of course. They're still down at the bottom in chaos. Because ultimately, what's this all about? It's about the results back to you, the owner. What do you want from it? And again, going back to what I said right at the start, do you know what you want from your business? So at this point, you might choose to be involved in other businesses. I've invested in other businesses now that are important for me in terms of social impact. You might choose to franchise. Charity, philanthropy might be important. One of our clients, he's gone off. His business works completely without him. His marketing agency in London, 30 people, works completely without him. He's gone and started a charity in India, bringing clean water to rural villages in India. That was his dream. Or it could just be more time with the family, holidays, that sort of thing. But it's your definition of freedom and what you ultimately want. Part of that is almost inevitably about money and wealth as well. Of course it is. The one thing I want to say here is your business is not your pension. Your business is not your pension. Why do I say that? A lot of people assume they're going to sell their business and that's going to be their retirement pot. Most businesses, there's a very small percentage of businesses that ever get put up for sale ever sell. They don't sell. No one buys them. Why not? Because they're not good businesses. They haven't been set up to sell. They haven't put this infrastructure in place, this operating system. It's not there. So nobody buys the thing. So they get to 50, I think 57 is the average age it gets put up for sale. They get to 57, they think, oh crap, no one's buying it. I'm stuck. So should you think about other income sources? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Pensions, of course, there's the SaaS pensions, which is the business owner pension. Should you be investing in pension funds? Yes. Should you be investing in other passive income sources like property, shares? Absolutely. Absolutely. Done that in my own life as well. And it is something to plan for, because ultimately we can't rely just on our business as our source of income for the next 40, 30, 40, 50 years. That is incredibly risky. Incredibly risky. Right. So I'll take a pause for breath. In the last minute, as I said, what are you going to do with this information? What action are you going to take, guys? Please decide what. If it's one thing, great, write that down. If it's a couple of things, great. You have the opportunity, as you saw in the invite, you have the opportunity to grab 30 minutes with me or one of my team of coaches to talk about that plan and how you're going to do it. I think there's an email going out today, which will have a link to book, our Calendly link to book a call to spend 30 minutes going through what you're going to do. Whether you take that call or not, it's entirely up to you. But do something. Please do something. Otherwise, I've just wasted an hour yabbering away, loads of information, but do something with it. And then I really, really hope, no, I don't hope, that's the wrong word. I expect you to get a better result if you actually do something and take action on at least one of the things I've talked about today. If everything here you've done, from mastery all the way up to the 6th step here on freedom, if you're all on top of it, fabulous. I should applaud you. Congratulations. If you know there's weaknesses in certain areas coming out of this, focus on those. You decide what you're going to try and commit to. If you want 30 minutes of our time to help you with that, great. If not, commit to it, do it. Let me know if you get a better result as a result. Thank you all. Wonderful to meet you. I'm going to stop recording. If anyone has got any final questions, I'm